This is part 3 of the art of leading a small group. Tip number 14, cut off dominators. Let's face it, they're out there. Many groups are blessed with that spirited person who contributes a little too much, and that can diminish the experience for everyone else. Usually, if the leader doesn't take control of this situation, no one will. One solution is to talk to this person away from the group. It doesn't take much. Start by affirming the positive and then candidly make your request. Hank, you have a lot of really good stuff to contribute in this study, but I want to make sure that others have an adequate opportunity to share too. Would you be willing to scale back, at least a little, the number of times that you contribute? A second way to balance contribution is to simply cut in when the dominator takes a breath. Echo what he or she has said to that point so they'll know they've been heard, and invite someone to respond to that. As a last resort, you might say to the group something like, I don't want you to feel like you're in school, but in the interest of managing this discussion, it would help me if you would all raise your hand when you want to comment. Then regulate the dominator's contribution in a way that's more helpful to the group. Number 15, ask for other opinions. How about somebody who hasn't spoken yet? Anyone else want to comment on this issue? Does anyone have a different perspective on this? These and similar questions are non-threatening ways of inviting people into the conversation. If it helps, write out some phrases with which you're comfortable and then use them at strategic points in your group meetings to draw in quiet group members. Sometimes just this little nudge can be a turning point for people. Number 16, frame questions using why and how. Usually, when you ask a question that begins with why or how, people tend to answer with more thoughtful, more extensive responses than if you ask a question that begins with who, where, or when. Think about it. Questions that begin with these latter words can lend themselves to one or two-word answers, right? But try answering a why or how question with one word. Not likely. If your goal is to get people talking, think about reframing questions that you ask. Number 17, permit silence after you ask a question. Eventually, it'll happen. You'll ask a question and no one will say anything. Resist the temptation to fill that void with your own voice. Give people time to think. Let them muster the courage to answer a tough question. Give them a moment to hear from God, if that's the prompting they're seeking. Get comfortable with silence after posing a question. Often, your patience will be rewarded with some of the richest and most poignant answers of the week. Number 18. Stay with fruitful conversation, even if it's taking lots of time. For group leaders who are especially time conscious, it's natural to march through a set of questions and make sure everything gets covered in the time allotted. But the best group leaders remain mindful that the real goal of these meetings is transformation, not efficiency or getting it all done. Sometimes a question will stimulate lots of discussion. It will go deep. It'll touch a chord. It'll create excitement. It'll surface pains or misunderstandings that need to be addressed. It will plant the seeds of lasting change for people. Avoid cutting off God's work in these situations. Don't be a slave to a script, insisting on covering all 5 questions in 10 minutes each. Some questions may require 20 minutes, others 3 minutes. So be flexible and learn to discern when to deviate from your original plan. Number 19, use a board or easel if possible. Chronicling on a board the relevant points that people make is a wonderful way of affirming, echoing, and clarifying what's been said. It will also help you to connect the dots more easily. Beyond that, many people will retain more of what's said if they've both heard it and seen it in writing. And number 20, summarize key points. Many people will find it instructive if you can recap some of the more important lessons from the discussion. The end of the session is a natural time to do this, but it's also helpful to do it at the beginning of a group meeting. Like, this is what God's taught us so far in this study. As well as after particularly important or complicated points in the discussion. Brief oral summaries from the leader enhance learning and retention. So take notes during the discussion and bless the group by emphasizing the essential takeaways. This has been The Art of Leading a Small Group. For a text version of this broadcast, or for similar discipleship resources, please visit us at christianity9to5.org. Thanks for listening.